Hello, Christy. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited for today's conversation.
Me too. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. I think that, yeah, I came up to you actually at the PPDA conference last year because I heard you
Yes.
speak and I was like, I need to have her on the podcast. So we are doing it now. And why don't you just get us started with telling people who you are, what you do, how you came into this work?
I would be happy to. So my name is Christie Uipi. I'm a psychotherapist and the founder of the Better Mind Center, which is just a team of clinicians who I love, who all work in the field of mind-body medicine. So similar to you, I work all day with folks one-on-one who are experiencing chronic symptoms of some sort that are neuroplastic in nature to some degree. And I got into this work after healing from every symptom in the book myself. I feel like I'm really up there in terms of there's a few of us who are like tallying up quite a few symptoms. I'm really up there in the dozens of having experienced quite a few from head to toe. So I healed from this work coming from mainstream medicine that did absolutely nothing for me. And when I learned about the world of mind body medicine and the power of our brains, it changed the quality of my life so much that I really can't imagine specializing in anything else. So this is where I'm at. I'm parked in this lane for the foreseeable future for sure.
Yeah. Let's actually, okay, so we're talking about a higher needs nervous system on this episode, but I want to talk a little bit more about what you just spoke to of all the different symptoms, because I feel like I'm very much so in that same camp
Yeah,
as
I
well.
thought so.
And what does that mean to people? Because I don't know about you, but I have a lot of people that come to me. They're like, "Is this neuroplastic? Is that neuroplastic?" Or they don't even use the term, right? They're just
Hmm.
like, "What is this? Is this nervous system based?" That's usually what they say.
Yeah.
So, what do you mean by having all different kinds of symptoms?
I think what it means to the person depends on where they are in the process. So for me, just literally to describe what I mean, I had many different pain and other symptoms that occurred over the course of many years and also that stacked simultaneously. So at any given time, I might have had pain in my hamstring, both my wrists, side of my neck, headache, vertigo, and nausea, for example. And for me, all of those sensations were coming from the same place, which was my brain, learned neural pathways, or like the language that you're using, nervous system based. What that means at any given time depends on where someone is coming from, the education that they have, and the lens through which they're seeing their symptoms. Because prior to learning about the world of nervous system healing, I had a different doctor for every one of those symptoms. So I had a doctor for my hamstring and a doctor for my vertigo, and then someone managing the medication for all of these various symptoms. And none of it helped. So each appointment I went to made me feel sicker and sicker, like Humpty Dumpty. All of these doctors, and I went to doctors on both coasts because I live in Los Angeles from New England, and I went to every imaginable practitioner in both locations, like flying back and forward, trying to find the best care. If you have that many providers and that many symptoms and that many medications, and none of them are making you feel better, it's probably a clue that we're missing a link. So there was such a transition, and I'm sure maybe you've experienced this or you've seen this in the work that you do with your clients. There's such a transition to recognizing I don't have 20 distinct sensations in my body, but I don't have 20 distinct causes of sensation or 20 distinct problems. I have this one centralized issue. And that, for me, and again, I think it depends on where someone's coming from and the lens through which they're seeing their symptoms. But that was the most relieving thing in the world. Like, oh my gosh, I only need to do this one thing. It's a hard process, don't get me wrong, but it's streamlined. And that was very freeing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. It can be, I mean, at least in my experience with my journey, I didn't connect those dots. I dealt with like manage the pain aspect
Mm-hmm.
using curable, using PRT, and then I was like, "Oh, cool, I'm good." A few years later, other symptoms popped up and I didn't connect the dots right off the bat.
Interesting.
I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize it until a little bit later and I was like,
Ooh.
"Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right.
Well,
I
because
get
it's
I get it now."
wild, the scope
Yeah.
of sensations and symptoms. That would make sense to me. And I'm not sure the order in which I'm familiar with some of your story and like I can think of the list of symptoms in my head. I'm not sure the order in which you experience them, but it can be a little mind boggling that something like itching or pelvic pain or dizziness is all the same It feels too simple for someone who's really experiencing excruciating symptoms. On the flip side of it being really relieving and freeing, another thing I've heard is this pushback of, that's too simple. I'm experiencing too much pain for it all to be one thing.
It's also can be scary because can feel in the beginning like, "Oh, then I have to do all this to change it?"
Yeah.
It can also feel like, "Oh, cool, I can," but also there's this element of like, "That's really big and scary and
Mm-hmm.
what?"
Yes. Right. And where do I start? And how am I
Yeah.
starting over this many years in?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then let's go into what we're talking about because this is a great segue. Like, what does it mean to have a higher needs nervous system in regards to everything we're talking about, all the symptoms?
To be talking about this with you because I can't think of this is something I've on intra personally with myself thought
Mhm.
through and worked on or talked about with my own therapist, but I haven't gotten a chance to talk about it with another practitioner in the field. So I'm actually really, really excited to see what
Yeah.
similarities we might have. But for me, having a higher needs nervous system, or another way of saying this might be having a sensitive nervous system, means that on the bell curve, and I'm putting myself in this category, and a lot of us who experience chronic symptoms probably would put themselves in the same boat. On the bell curve, our nervous systems ask for more to recover. They need more to feel good, and they experience greater intensity from lower levels of stimulation than perhaps whatever the average is on whatever bell curve I'm referencing. And both for me and for people that I've worked with, I think this can be a point of confusion and sometimes a point of contention. I've had many clients ask me and sometimes state with a lot of frustration, how do I make my nervous system less sensitive? I'm tired of it needing so, maybe we can maybe at some point talk about what it might need, but things like rest or emotional expression or time out or space. I don't want it to need all of this all the time. And so there's this funny place in the middle where I think we have some choice points to make around what we accept about the sensitivity of our nervous system, what we lean into and appreciate as this is who I am and how I am, and there's some strengths to be found from it, versus I feel limited by the ways that my nervous system is sensitive. And there are some changes that I want to make to increase my threshold of stress or stimulation. So I just thought it would be a fun conversation to have in terms of
Mhm.
what does it mean to have a sensitive nervous system or a higher needs nervous system? And then how much of that do we embrace versus how much of that is worth shifting?
Yeah. It definitely is a conversation that I've had with myself and reflected on many times because I
Mm-hmm.
very much so resonate with that. Like I've always been a sensitive person, sensitive
Yeah.
nervous system. And I really do think there's a point where we can say, yes, that's 100% something you can work on. You don't have to live in a bubble, essentially. You don't have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be doing these things all the time
Mm-hmm.
to just live, to just daily live. Right. And at the same time, yeah, what do we acknowledge as actually sometimes what I like to call a superpower
Mm-hmm.
and what we can really grab onto and be
Yep.
appreciative of? That can
Mm-hmm.
take a little bit to get to.
Totally.
But I also think it's person specific, but I think, yeah, let's talk about, okay, what do you see as that choice point to where we look at it and we're like, this is something we can work with for sure. We don't have to be so tuned in all the time.
Yes. The words that come to mind when I think of these two different camps of what do we want to embrace versus what do we potentially want to shift or change are container versus limitation. Like if I have a positive relationship to the word container, like the idea of being contained feels really good to me. So if there are ways that I am taking care of my nervous system that feel like it's helping me stay contained, that's something that I've developed a positive relationship with. On the flip side, if there are things about my nervous system that make me feel like I'm limited or feel like limitations on ways I want to interact with myself, with people around me, with the world around me, then that feels like it's worth challenging. And it might help. And I feel like we probably both have specifics in both sides of things, which might make it feel clearer to listeners. But that's my general framework is if it's feeling containing and grounding and helpful, then my sensitivity is not something that I am trying to shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, what are some of those things that might be helpful for you that you wouldn't shift?
So, my baseline, first, just to take a step back and to
Hmm.
own it for myself, my baseline level of sensitivity is kind of high. Like, I can't listen to music and have someone talk to me at the same time. Or if I'm driving, it's like I need to turn down the music to see where I'm going. I can't have that much input, as one example. I can't stack quite as many sessions for work, doing one-on-one work with clients. I have, compared to other practitioners that I've talked to, I need to take more breaks to decompress my body so that I can be present for the next client. Like, I've talked to people who have seen 6 people in a row and it doesn't have much of an impact on their body. If I did that, I would implode. It would not have enough time to bring my nervous system back down. It's like a sponge. My nervous system feels like a sponge and it can soak things up. So that's another example of it. When I wake up in the morning, I can't immediately dive into whatever the task is. So if I
Hmm.
have to wake up and get ready for work, or I have to wake up and rally my kids for school, I need some time by myself with lower stimulation while my brain is in that sensitive morning place prior to doing any of those tasks. So I could probably think of 100 things that are specific to me that are indications of having a sensitive nervous system and that don't feel like limits to me. Those things feel like ways of taking care of myself that I'm not willing to part with. I just came back from a family trip. I had a bunch of them from a family trip. It comes up a lot when I'm traveling. I need a space of my own. It doesn't need to be a whole room. It doesn't need to be a dedicated anti-stimulation room for me. It doesn't mean I need to like live in a palace when I'm on vacation, but I need somewhere I know I can go each day where I can close the door and not interact with someone when I'm out of routine, when I'm on vacation. That's a non-negotiable for me. I also need movement when I'm on vacation. It's not my regular routine. I'm not going to my regular gym, but I know I need to move my body. So there really are, if I just sat here, I could talk your ear off on a bunch of things that come to mind when I think of these are ways that I take care of myself. But they feel like that. They feel like taking care of myself. Does that make sense? And do you have a bunch of those?
I mean, I could probably say everything you said.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. And they've become like taking care, supportive to me, helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Like in the mornings, I have very much so primed myself because it feels good and helps me. There's no way I could wake up and even an hour later go straight into seeing a client or work or something. That just isn't going to feel great to me. And I feel my best when I do things for myself and set myself up for the day. So, yes, definitely. And I think that's come over time of really understanding, practicing, and being aware of, okay, what is too much and what is supportive. That takes time to figure out, but the more you have experience of, like, I've played with the amount of sessions a day
Yeah.
many
Yeah. Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep.
that was too much. Okay, I'm going to scale back to this. It
Mm-hmm.
also changes depending on what's going on in my life and what's happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
how full is my life? How active am I? How many people am I around? If I'm having a very chill week and I don't have much else going on, yeah, maybe I wouldn't feel as bad seeing more sessions in a day or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it is dependent, but there's definitely some parameters of this feels good to my nervous system because, yeah, I am more in tune with the world. I'm more in tune with
Yeah.
people. I pick up on
Mm-hmm.
things. I am that sponge more,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So then how can I like to ask the question of like, how can I support that? Instead of being like, "Oh my gosh, I hate that I have to do this." And don't get me wrong, there's been those times for sure where I'm like, "I'm over this work. I don't wanna do it anymore."
Yeah. It's hard work.
Mhm. Yeah, but over time, understanding those nuances,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, helps me be in my life so much more, and it's
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yes, it's enjoyable. I think that I love that you are using that word, that these ways of taking care of ourselves, they can feel enjoyable in and of themselves, and they can help us access joy throughout the day. That's where I get into some back and forth with my clients when I had this process for myself. It's not like I arrived thrilled at all the things I needed to do to take care of my. I had that same like, why do I need to do all these things? But I'll have clients who say, like, that's a lot. All those examples you just shared, Christy, like, you'd get a lot more time back in your day if you weren't doing those things. Like, my partner just hops out of bed and gets into work. Like, how is that not objectively a better way to live? Like, you have to do all this stuff. They don't need to do all this stuff. And I've had some ping pongs with clients in that conversation. And what it comes back to for me is this is like a gravity problem. We are not going to solve it. I can't suddenly just start floating through air and be anti-gravity in my body. It's not an option. I can't change the fact that I'm a sensitive person, that I have like more mirror neurons in me than the typical person, that I am that sponge. I don't, and this might be an opinion, like maybe other people feel differently. And again, there are things that can shift and we can talk about that too. But in my opinion, it's not something I have had success foundationally changing about myself. And it feels confrontational to myself to make that a goal. So if I wake up every day and I see my partner hop out of bed and just get right to work and feel full of energy, and I know that that's not within my access, spending time comparing myself to someone who doesn't need that does not feel compassionate to me. It just is creating this gap where I feel like I'm failing. I feel like it's some part of recovery that I haven't accessed. And that is fueling a pain, fear, symptom, fear, nervous system cycle in and of itself. So it's not that I don't understand the feelings of frustration around needing to attend to our nervous systems in this way. It's what I call a gravity problem. Like, my body won't float through air and defy gravity, nor will I wake up in a body that is less sensitive to stimulation, feelings, vibe, everything of the micro environment around me, and in many ways the macro environment we're living in.
Yeah. I would even, sometimes I say this too, I would even argue sometimes, maybe not 100% of the time, but sometimes the people that do get straight out of bed and go into work, I think they have some stress going on. They don't always seem super happy. Do they get 2 hours in and they're like, "Oh, this day's long already." I mean, they're
Totally.
stressed out too.
Yep.
It
No,
just may
no,
not
yep.
show up like it might in those of us that have
Mm-hmm.
chronic symptoms and mind body.
I love that you said that. It's so true. Like, no one gets, I mean, whatever, everyone's different, blah, blah, blah. Like, no one gets off totally free. Like, everyone has their, so and that's something I think about all the time too. Like, and I'm curious if you actually have an answer to this or if you ever thought of it. Like, would you choose for your stress to show up differently? Like, would you choose for it to show up in numbing yourself out? Would you choose for it to show up in some sort of addiction or compulsion to work? Or like, would we and we can't change it, but
Right.
sometimes I think that I'm like, my answer is no. Even though it's been a painful ride, literally, like, I would not change how clear the communication is.
That's a great question. And that's hard. I mean, you're right. It's hard to answer because I don't know. I don't know the other. Is the grass always greener, or I have no idea because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those other things, addiction, whatever it is, sounds really hard
Really
too. And like you
hard.
said, not always known. Like, it might take a really long time for someone to come to, if you will, and look at it.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, with us, it's like, hello, it's right off the
Right.
bat. Our body's
Right.
talking right to us.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
find that really helpful.
And there's so many lessons and metaphors. And I love myself so much more because of everything that I've learned throughout it, which
Mm.
helps me enjoy my life
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
and enjoy taking care of myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that you keep bringing it back to the joy in taking care of yourself. It really can feel like that. Really, like, when I think about not getting access, and maybe this is also where the limit, like, we can chat a
Mhm.
little bit about the limitations. When I think about not being able to attend to myself in that way, like needing to rush through my day or apply those old perfectionism standards that I used to, like, I used to live in discordance with the needs of my nervous system, right? Like, probably all of us did. That's what our symptoms were telling us. I used to just blow past them, like blow past my limits, blow past my needs. And it was awful. This just works. This just works better to be more
Mhm.
mindful and attentive. And a lot of it is just watching input. Like, I can only tolerate so much input of, like, lots of things, stimulation, feelings also, just like how much I'm affected by other people's feelings or nervous system activation. Like I might hit a limit sooner than other folks.
Yeah. And by understanding that limit, then when you are seeing people, whether you're a therapist or not, right? If you identify as someone who's impacted by other people and sensitive to emotions and can read the room really well, but then get overwhelmed easily, by us understanding that and taking care of ourselves, we can be in it more.
Yeah. 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 Big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's talk about, what do we mean by limits, by limitations? And how
Okay,
does that look?
so I want to be mindful that everyone's limits are going to be different for a variety of different reasons, but one of them is people's goals are different. So let me think of an example in my real life. A long time ago, when I was working at another group practice, we wanted to expand the practice. So I was a therapist, I had those sets of skills. I'm pretty comfortable with people one on one. And it was tasked to me by my supervisor to go out and talk to other physicians, practitioners in the neighborhood of the office to try to form new relationships, which sounded great in theory. I definitely want public education around nervous system healing. So like, yeah, totally. I want to spread the word. I tried this for about a month and I had raging anxiety every single day of it because I had to walk in to like a busy office in Beverly Hills of people I don't know, go up to the receptionist and like pitch like, hi, I'm Christie from down the road. Can I bring you lunch one day? That sort of, that sort of interaction where I don't have it like that, it requires small talk and some degree of charm and like schmoozing and knowing the rules of engagement. I was so bad at it. And I remember it took me, I knew I felt anxious after a month, but it took me about 3 months to go back to my boss and say, I am not going to do this role. But there was a choice point for me where I remember thinking to myself, this is important. This is not just to like make new buddies in the professional neighborhood. We want to be able to help physicians understand what nervous system healing is. So I want to be able to do this task theoretically. So it was a choice point. Like, is this something where I need to build my anxiety for? In some ways it's conflict, right? Because like the person that I'm encountering doesn't necessarily want me to interrupt their day. So I feel like a burden. I feel like I'm annoying them. Like I go into my head, do I want to grow my capacity for that? Or do I want to accept that this is a limit for me? Like I am not motivated enough to want this to be a skill of mine or a goal of mine. Like, might there be someone who's just better suited for this task? Does it bring me enough enjoyment to want to work on this? And for me, with that example, the motivation was not high enough. There were other people on the team who just naturally like, what do you mean that makes you nervous? Like that person will never remember you. Just go ask if you want to bring them lunch. Who cares? That person is more motivated and will get more joy and fulfillment from the role. So for me, that was the limit, even though someone else might have looked at it and said, like, that was an opportunity for you to challenge your conflict avoidance. So and that's just one example of probably many that occur all the time, where even within the role, like the idea of limits, I think there's some agency to be able to say, do I want to work on this? Because I think we can make goals and work on lots of things, even if they feel really difficult or will take a very long time to achieve. And you have to ask yourself, am I interested in climbing that mountain? And if the answer is no, I think that's okay. And that might be different from another example that probably too well known in this space. I was really afraid of flying for a long time. And that did genuinely feel like a limit because I wanted to visit family and attend work conferences out of state, and it elicited a lot of fear in me. That could have been in some other season or a different version of me, that might have been a limit. Like, I don't want to fly. It's too upregulating for me. I'm not finding enough traction there. That was a place where I pushed myself because my motivation was very high. It was I couldn't imagine not leaving the state. I had one very scary flying experience that like impact. I was like, it is possible for me to stack corrective experiences and heal from this. So two totally random different examples where either way, I just think the person gets to decide, is this a limit? And you want to say, can't, it's a boundary, or I don't want to put effort into changing this, or is this an area of growth for me?
Yeah. And so with nervous systems that are a little higher needs, more sensitive, if you will, yeah, we can make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
How much do we tune in and shift some of the limitations, and how much do we not? And I think this is important to note because it's not overall inherently a bad thing to have a sensitive nervous system, where I think sometimes it feels like that, right? Like, well, if I can't do all of these things, it's bad. I'm not like this other person, like you were talking about comparison, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's this back and forth of what is what's impacting me and what's not, which is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what
Yeah.
you're just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And they can be way, just to name it, because I'm in a different place right now than I was 10 years ago when I was in the throes of really intense fear. Like, someone listening, your push point might be, I really want to go to the grocery store and it currently feels like a limit because of fear, anxiety, sensations, pain, dizziness, like that. They can be much more, like they can be more daily or quote unquote smaller. Like, I want to be able to expose myself to the grocery store is absolutely a worthwhile endeavor to take a look at. And that for some people might be, on depending on where they are, a growth point, because it might feel really important for them to feel capable of being able to do that for themselves. And at some other juncture, that might be a limit. Like, that might be beyond where you are that day, or that step.
Yeah. Yeah, and the more too, we have to recognize the more that we do start expanding our, what we say, safety in our nervous system, maybe
Mm-hmm.
the more things that we approach. But when we
Yeah.
recognize we're very overstimulated and in stuck fear response, yeah, it's going to look different than maybe where both of you and I are now
Yeah,
of expanding
totally.
our limits. Yeah.
Totally. And I'm glad you brought that up, because this is where the idea of approach and avoidance with limits is so important. And I can hear a
Mm-hmm.
PRT lens here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference, in my opinion, between respecting your limit and respecting your boundary and respecting your wants and your goals versus allowing your anxiety to be the only thing that's fueling your decision making. And I'm guilty. We are all guilty of this. I think at some points I certainly have been. So it's okay if someone listening resonates with this and feels like anxiety rules all of my decisions. That the fear brain really takes precedence when it's on. So you're in good company if you're experiencing this. But that's where I'd want to help a client challenge that. It might feel like a limit because your anxiety is too high to go through that experience right now. And I'd like for the decision making to come from a place of groundedness or want or preference, as opposed to the decision making solely being based on fear, because that's when limits can become really all encompassing. Like, if we start avoiding the grocery store, we might start avoiding any interaction with neighbors. We might start avoiding leaving our house. We might start avoiding leaving our living room. Like, the world can become avoidance is contagious. And the more that we avoid things, the more that our brain codes all of those things as dangerous, and anything even like them or associated with them as dangerous. And that can become like a very fast moving snowball.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening to this can resonate with, because a lot of people end up having a certain symptom, or a great example is like food sensitivities. There's been a
Yeah.
couple, and then you're told that, oh, these other things are bad. And so then you become more sensitive to those. And especially with food, it's a huge snowball effect because there's so much fear
Yes.
around it.
Yes. I'm really glad you brought up that specific, because that makes it way more tangible. Same with movement. Like, if you have
Mm,
pain
yep.
and bending to your right causes pain, then it might become bending to your left. It might become anything with squatting. It might become anything with any sort of rotation. And that is, so it's not your, thank you so much for naming that. It's not necessarily always experiences or events, or it can be something within your own body that you're either avoiding or that feels like a limit or a growth point.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we actually know? Maybe use one of those examples. How do we know what's something to expand our growth in, and
Mm-hmm.
what's something to maybe it would be too much at this time for our anxiety or fear?
Okay. I have a couple of thoughts on that. The first would be back to this idea of what's driving the decision. Is it anxiety is going to be in the mix no matter what. We're dealing with
Yeah.
nervous system regulation. But what's driving the decision? Is it purely fear and anxiety? And is there any way we can parse out fear and anxiety from preference or want? And this can be hard. When you're anxious, it's hard to imagine not being anxious. But one simple question to start the ball rolling is, let's go back to the grocery store example. And that could be, I don't want to go, I am scared to go to the grocery store because it's going to hurt too badly. It's going to make me too nauseous. It's going to make me too dizzy. Or it's going to make me too anxious. I'm not going to be able to calm down from it after. There's lots of different reasons why that might feel like a limit. So simply asking yourself, if it weren't for the fear that I'm experiencing around this, do I want to be able to go? Like, does it feel like I would prefer to be able to have the freedom to do that? Or do I not really care? It's like, my partner does all the grocery shopping. Like, that's not really, I'm not super motivated to climb that mountain. So be able to suss out that difference for fear and anxiety versus want or preference. And then if you do decide, yeah, I actually do think I would want to do that if it weren't for the fear, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to choose that goal or you have to choose it right away. So you might recognize, okay, this is something that I want to work on. And there's a possibility it could be above your threshold and you'd have to work up to it. And basically anything that you're working on can be broken down into smaller steps. So it's a matter of, what skills do you have to attempt to move you through that experience? And can those tools help you remain in some sort of window of tolerance as you're exposing yourself to the activity? If the answer is yes, then absolutely, you can push yourself into discomfort while using tools to regulate, while recognizing if the tools are falling short, not because you're doing them wrong, not because the tools are ineffective, just because that's where you're at in that stage, that day, or that season. If while you're doing the experience, you're entering a state of true distress or terror or panic that you are not able to regulate down from, that's not corrective. That's if you finish that experience and then ask yourself, am I motivated to try again? And the answer is no, that was absolutely terrifying. I did not feel any lick of empowerment. Doesn't mean you can't do that goal, just means we're going to break it down into a smaller step.
Yes. I'm so glad you mentioned that. The idea that there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be some fear, there's going to be uncomfortability because you're shifting something that is really scary, could be really scary for your body, right? Your nervous system. So yeah, there's going to be that, but it doesn't need to be this insane amount of fear and anxiety and is just like a horrible experience.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a very big difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not shifting necessarily a little bit, but along this line of, I thought about this question. Can working on yourself actually backfire with someone with a higher needs nervous system? Like, can we do too much? That's too much for ourselves, too much work.
Yeah. You mean in terms of the goals that we set?
Yeah. Because I'll say this too. We know a lot of us come with perfectionism tendencies and high achievers and like wanting to fix it and get better. Right. And so when we recognize there's some sensitivities, at least I've seen this a couple times where people are like, okay, well, I'm going to change that. Right. I'm going to push past it all and make me better, fix it.
Yep.
How does that
What a cool question.
Yeah.
I don't think the goal for me is not to eliminate sensitivity. It's to eliminate barriers to accessing things you want to do, to accessing joy, to accessing relationships. So that feels really distinct to me. We're not just trying to make it so that either your body is not giving you clues, sensations, signals, or that's not the goal. The goal is not to eliminate the clues or signals. The goal is definitely not to be able to blow past them again. And I felt this way when I was first recovering. Like, I want to bring my anxiety down so I can go back to pushing myself as hard as I was without anxiety. Well, that's not going to happen, because the healing is going to require that you rid yourself of the mechanisms that left you predisposed to all of this. And I say all of this with a smile only because I've experienced it. It is not funny. It's extremely difficult to go through. And I myself truly did feel that was a viable goal at one point. If I can learn to blow past my anxiety, I can return to riding myself very hard without experiencing anxiety. That's just, we learn through the process. I, for one, have never a single time working with whatever hundreds of patients, I have never seen anyone accomplish that goal. I have seen people hold on to that goal and pause the process, though. I have heard it just be for them to feel so upset by the fact that they really will have to shift these parts of themselves that they just decide they're not ready to continue healing right then and there.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. That is definitely can be part of the process of realizing maybe I don't want to do this right now. Everyone has their own timeline,
Hmm.
everyone. And also, I'm glad you mentioned it's not about getting back to where you were. That's what so many people say.
Hmm.
Cause yeah, it makes sense. You've realized, you've tracked over the past few years, all of a sudden you have all these symptoms and you just want to feel like yourself again.
Yeah.
I want to say though that going through it and creating, or you can say finding, but I kind of like the word creating, this newer version of yourself, it's actually way better than the previous version. You don't have to go back for everything to
Yeah.
be better.
Hmm.
Though we don't
Yep.
realize that, which makes sense.
No,
You can't realize it, right? In the middle
no,
of it. Yeah.
no. I'm so glad that you said that. And you can't imagine it if it's a state that you've never seen before, and perfectionism and putting pressure on yourselves and all of those personality traits that we stack on people. Like, again, they're learned, they're adaptive. You didn't come into this world saying, like, I'm going to drive myself so hard that I push myself into chronic symptoms. Like, nobody does that. And yeah, I have this conversation a lot. And it was huge for me. There's something about recognizing that we are all pretty much average at most things that is a huge access point to self compassion and a huge challenge for people who are used to viewing themselves as exceptional and creating exceptional work and working exceptionally hard and blowing past the needs of your body in an exceptional way. Like, if you are the person who always gets an A plus, even on an exam that's designed to flunk you, or you're the one who is the last person to leave the office every single day, and everyone says, like, well, you know, whoever, like, they got no limit. If you're the one who always get whatever it is, all the accolades, and how do you do all of that, and all, you become identify you I start to identify with this exceptionalism within yourself that I can't necessarily argue doesn't come from the way that you push yourself. So you have to learn to become more invested in your experience of those accolades as opposed to the accolades themselves. And ridding yourself with that exceptionalism is no joke. And it, like, I personally think I still have a flourishing life and career. And it's not that I don't feel successful. It's just recognizing, like, average is cool. Like, being in the, like, taking care of myself and finding balance, which I would actually say is a better word than average.
Mm.
Finding,
Mhm.
finding balance and, like, letting yourself choose. I want to really push myself here, and I don't care all about that other thing, is so freeing and so joyful.
Even when you made that change from average to balance, yeah, there's this almost like, yeah, okay, that feels better,
Right?
right? Average, and I think actually, I'm not totally sure, but I would kind of assume because there's a societal standard around what average is, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically in many societies, specifically Western society, there's this emphasis on succeeding and pushing and like don't be average in a
Yeah,
way.
totally. Like,
So, yeah.
most of us are average. The bell curve is the biggest in the middle. And it doesn't, and for me, when I think of the idea of average, I also think of just the summation of everything that happens in my day and recognizing I
Mm,
can't be exceptional at all of them at the same time. So I love my work. I do feel like I succeed in it. I feel great at what I do, and I love doing it and the people that I help. So that's like a push point for me. Not the room mom at my kids preschool. Like, I show up on the first day and I tell them, like, thank you so much. Tell the teachers, like, thank you for taking care of my kids. I appreciate you. I love you. It's such a gift that I get to drop them off here. I will not be here. I will not be able to be in two places at once, for example, because that's not as important to me. Making dinner for my kids is important to me. That's a push point. Like, you just make choices and recognize you can't be exceptional. That for me is shedding myself of exceptionalism. I don't think anyone can do all the things all out all the time. I used to think that. I burned myself to the ground trying.
yeah. Yeah. That came up for me a lot when I just first opened a private practice and I was listening to like business podcasts and building a practice and things like that. And I remember someone talking about you can't have all of your buckets in life, partnership, business, social, health, like they will not all be perfect at the same
Yeah.
time
Yeah. Yeah.
and very similar, right? And we could even talk about that in terms of, especially when you're in the beginning or the middle of your journey with symptoms and you might have this like whack-a-mole of symptoms, like one pops up, the other pops up, right? We do kind of have to, sometimes we work on one and then we kind of move to the other. It's all very similar, right? Like it can't always be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And things heal at different times and they shift at
Exactly.
different times.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, as we're looking at nervous system sensitivity, really as we're seeing it like as, okay, we didn't use the word power, but there can be a lot of power in it, right? When you can recognize yourself as being tuned in, and if you like the word tuned in instead of sensitive, sensitive can sometimes come with a negative connotation, if you will. I don't think you and I feel that way right now, but probably have in the past.
Totally.
And then also recognizing that that doesn't have to be limits. You don't have to have limits on your whole life because you are a little bit more tuned in. Maybe you need a little bit more throughout your day to understand that balance. That, I think this is just a really powerful episode. I think it's just very needed.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it feels so powerful when you're living it in action.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like what you just said very much. It doesn't need to be, it can be little things throughout the day that make a big difference to you, but that don't, it's not like it doesn't actually take hours out of your life or drain you or make you so different from everyone else. Like, if I'm at a party for 3 hours and I'm the only one who needs to step out a couple of times to get fresh air and breathe, no one noticed. No one else recognized. For everyone else, I was at the party. And I leave feeling like I enjoyed it, and everyone else feels like I was there because I was. Like it's like drinking water. You take small sips throughout the day to stay hydrated. You're not just like guzzling out of a hose all day. Like regulation is small sips throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Is there anything else around higher needs nervous system that you feel like is important to note as we're talking here?
I would just ask, and this is, I mean, if someone told me this while I was still in pain, my eyes would roll back in my head. So I welcome all the eye rolls, but I just really invite patience as you are figuring out what does it mean for me to have long-term maintenance of my nervous system, because the things I did to help relieve pressure and pain and intensity and anxiety while I was in high sensation, they've changed. I do different things now. I don't use somatic tracking every day now. I don't need to meditate on a very strict schedule. I'm no longer practicing graded exposure with my body. The way I move is different. And I still move. I still meditate. I'm still tuned in. So it's a long process, a lifelong process of figuring out, what does my nervous system need today in this season? And can I accept that and recognize my joy and my comfort will be expanded if I recognize that these are simply things I need. I can't solve gravity. I can't solve my sensitivity, nor should that necessarily ever be the goal.
Love that. Thank you. It does look different over time. What you do to help yourself, your practices, how you expose yourself with your limits. Definitely, we're not looking for rigidness. That's not actually helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. But it is important to take that time if you need it, or take that balance, figure out what that balance is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Christy.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Where can people tune into and find you?
Thank you. Also, Grace, this was really fun and I really looked forward to it. And it was just as enjoyable as I imagined. And people can find me and my team at bettermindcenter.com. And I'm on Instagram at better.with.christy.
Thank you.
Thank you.